Two words. Orcish Lumberjack. Hello, Phil from the future here. You have time for one round, make it round two. It will be obvious very quickly why that is the case. Enjoy the show. Hello, folks. Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU, here for another Legacy video, and today we are going to be playing Applejacks. This deck list comes to us from Claymore1. Thank you very much for your support. And I'm not really going to change much here, but I wanted to do it live since there are so few changes. If you haven't seen Orcish Lumberjack before, it's a pretty neat card. You sacrifice a forest, you get a Black Lotus. Okay, it's not quite a Black Lotus because you get 3 mana in any combination of red or green. This is going to be a deck that wants to intentionally sacrifice its lands. We have Baloth Prime, which enters tapped with 6 stun counters, but whenever you sacrifice a land, you get a 4/4 beast token and untap this creature, hence removing one of its stun counters. And similarly, Titania says whenever a land you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you get a 5/3 green elemental creature token. We can not only just cut down our trees with Orcish Lumberjack, but we can also sacrifice them to Greater Gargadon, which lets us sacrifice an artifact creature or land to remove a time counter from this card while it is suspended. So we can do something like turn 1, suspend a Greater Gargadon, turn 2, sacrifice a veteran explorer that we play, getting a bunch of mana, and then use that to fuel our relatively overcosted creatures, at least by Legacy standards. Now, we are going to get into some rules nuance here with Solemnity. So, players can't get counters. Counters can't be put on artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or lands. So this deck can do some very obvious silly things where you play a Solemnity on 3 mana and then a Baloth Prime on 4 mana, and you have a 4 mana 10/10 that kills your opponent in 2 shots while also making a bunch of beasts. And that's all cool and well. But we can also use our Living Wish to go and grab a Dark Depths and instantly get a 20/20, as the counters aren't allowed to be placed on this land. There's also Glacial Chasm, and this one is a little weird. So normally it has a cumulative upkeep of pay 2 life. At the beginning of your upkeep, put an age counter on this permanent, then sacrifice it unless you pay its upkeep cost for each age counter on it. So normally you pay 2 life, and then you pay 4 life, and so on and so forth. Well, now, in the upkeep, Glacial Chasm tries to put a counter on itself, can't, and then the rest of the ability resolves. So you pay 2 life 0 times in order to keep this card. So Solemnity plus Glacial Chasm is a soft lock on the game, where you can go and accumulate a bunch of power on board until you are confident that you can kill your opponent in a single hit. Then you can go ahead and sacrifice your Glacial Chasm, maybe instantly, to a Greater Gargadon, and win the game from there. Notably, Solemnity does not work with Greater Gargadon. So if you suspend Greater Gargadon with a Solemnity in play, it does go to exile with the 10 time counters on it. Notably, while this deck shares a lot of cards with Nic Fit, it's really kind of its own animal here. We are much more land focused in terms of getting rid of our lands than a deck like Nic Fit is. So you will see some of the familiar things that we have been playing in the various Nic Fit shells that we've been trying out within this deck. The one thing that I want to do here is increase the number of dual lands that are in the deck. This deck wants to have a lot of forests for Orcish Lumberjack, and sometimes you are going to pull 4 basic lands out of your deck at the same time, with like Veteran Explorer sacking to Flare of Cultivation. But I am very worried, given the number of red and white sources in this deck, that we just don't cast our spells a decent portion of the time. So I'm going to pull 2 basic forests from the deck and add 1 more Savannah and one more Taiga here. And then otherwise, we're going to play this deck exactly as it was submitted. As a side note here, before we wrap up the deck tech, we are crushing the fundraising goals. As of this time, I think we are going to hit all of the fundraising goals that I set, which means I am on the hook for a Celeste stream. So feel free to add that to your calendar. Friday, June 26th, 2 p.m. Eastern, I will be speedrunning Celeste. I am starting to practice all of my tech and hopefully get most of those levels to a decent place before my little showcase for you all. Feel pretty good about all of them except the last level. With that being said, folks, if you need any Magic cards, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. And when you do, use my promo code ThrabenU to save yourself a little bit on your order. If you have your eye on anything from the upcoming Marvel set, consider getting it here. We might get a vintage playable that you can cast off a workshop and swing for 16 power. Get your fantastic cards. With that being said, let's battle. All right. Opening hand is going to make some mana. I am not sure, since I don't really have a payoff card yet, I'm not sure if I should just immediately play Veteran Explorer and sacrifice it to Flare of Cultivation, potentially giving my opponent 2 mana immediately. I think I'm just gonna lead on Greater Gargadon. It's pretty punishing if my opponent seizes Veteran Explorer, though. Alright, my opponent does keep their 7-card hand. I think I'm just going to suspend a Greater Gargadon and call it a turn. Alright, my opponent is playing something that is going to likely have some basic lands. So we'll just kind of keep that in mind. Ooh. Living Wish is Baloth Prime? Living Wish is Dark Depths? Living Wish is probably Baloth Prime. Alright, here is Veteran Explorer. Okay, it has resolved. I'm gonna sack this. I will get 2 basic land cards. I'm going to get white here, and I'll get my second green as well. Gonna let me play Solemnity this turn. I'm gonna get one of these to play, one of these to hand. Go to play. 1, 2, 3. There is a resolved Solemnity. We'll do gross things with Living Wish next turn. Ooh. Opponent brainstorms. Flooded Strand comes down to shuffle for that brainstorm. Ooh, opponent has black in their deck as well. Alright, there's a Riddler. My opponent can blink and keep their Riddler. That whole cheating the warp thing. They are at 7 cards. I will remove a counter from Greater Gargadon. I will go ahead and Living Wish. Yes. Grab Baloth Prime. My stuff last turn resolved. Hopefully this is the case this turn as well. If this resolves, I just get a whole bunch of beasts. Which is probably extremely difficult for my opponent to beat, and I also will just have a 10/10 creature. Unfortunately, between their draw for turn and the Quantum Riddler draws, they did find Force of Will. Which now leaves me in a very, very bad situation where I have catapulted my opponent's mana forward, and, like, they would not have Felia. They also would not have Riddler, if not for my own Veteran Explorer. I still believe that it is worth doing, to be clear, and I do not regret doing it. But it is one of the awkward things about, like, doing something involving Veteran Explorer as a strategy. If your opponent is good at taking... Oh, gonna make me sad by consigning this trigger? No, you were just blinking it out of the way. That's fine. Alright, so the second Living Wish is a little worse, but it can still make a 20/20. Oh, here we go. Say yes. I'm just briefly thinking about just getting the Glacial Chasm. I feel like my opponent just blinks out Solemnity and stifles the trigger, and then that plan dies. I think I am going to just get Dark Depths. So, Dark Depths, no ice counters, instant 20/20, and then we will play some other creatures. We are at the point where I could start thinking about just yeeting everything to Greater Gargadon and attacking in for 9 as well. I don't think I am going to do that. Lordsing Collector, oof. I think I'm going to take the life over sacrificing that to Greater Gargadon. Oh, fucking Felia. Oh, I'm dumb. Oh, that was a bad play. Alright, opponent ponders. Alright, well, the Glacial Chasm play would not have worked out either, apparently. Yikes. Alright, that one I will. Oh no, I can't sack you. It's not a permanent artifact, creature, or land. Alright. So I made a bad play, but my opponent would have had my good play covered anyway. And since my opponent had the swords, even if I went for, like, yeet everything to Greater Gargadon, that would not have worked out either. I just cut down a tree and cast this. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, 10. Send in for 1 with an Orcish Lumberjack, but I suspect that I am in trouble now, as either one of these creatures will just be lethal next turn. I am down to 2. And Thalia will return my creature. That's another Orcish Lumberjack. So I am dead in the air here. GG. We lost that one to our own Veteran Explorer, unfortunately. Collector Oof doesn't need to be in the deck. I could play some red Elemental Blasts, and they would be okay. It's a way to get a Riddler out of play, or potentially stop a counterspell. I think I am okay with that. I suspect that Solemnity is not great here. My opponent is just very good at dealing with that via Prismatic Ending, blinking it out with Thalia, that sort of stuff, bouncing it with Teferi potentially. And the body of Baloth Prime itself is not overly exciting. I suspect I just cut those, play red Elemental Blasts to back up my stuff, then maybe fill a slot with an extra creature. My opening hand is kind of medium. I can play Orcish Lumberjack and immediately send Questing Beast, but then I kind of don't do anything after that. I think I will just mulligan that one. This is a pretty mediocre hand that doesn't do anything. I think I just keep it and hope that it develops, but this does not spark joy. My opponent's deck as a white removal deck is pretty good at answering Veteran Explorer, and it's possible I should not even play Veteran Explorer here, and I should just hold it in hand until I can sacrifice it. Try to catapult towards my 5-drop. But I guess at the end of the day, if a swords hits that and not this, that is a boon for me. Oof. Yeah, so now my hand Stone Cold does nothing. I can do nothing faster. I am just going to cast that card for 3 mana next turn, rather than sacrifice the Veteran Explorer in all likelihood. I'm not going to swing for a cantrip with something like Red Elemental Blast here. I think I am supposed to use that to attack something like a Riddler later on in the game. This goes into play tapped. Alright. I think I am just doing this like this and not giving my opponent white mana. I will get you. Do I ever need double red? Realistically, no. Planes can go to the battlefield. In we go for a mighty 1 point of damage. So I could wait to play this until I have red Elemental Blast available to back it up. I don't really think I want to sacrifice the Veteran Explorer immediately, though. Alright, opponent to 14. Alright, I probably need to remove that with red Elemental Blast, unfortunately. That does stuff. Be a Baloth Prime or a Questing Beast. Let's start here, blowing up the Tamiyo. That is a Force of Will. If I want to use my mana, I can do a Greenstone for X equals 3. X equals 4 is a lot better. I think I probably need to just use my mana. This can get an Endurance, and Endurance can clear my opponent's graveyard for something like Flow State, which hypothetically matters, while also being a blocker for Tamiyo. And if Endurance eats swords, then Titania isn't eating swords. Yeah. I mean, the bad news here is that my opponent still has active Tamiyo, right? Like, still very, very clearly a problem. All right. So, big splashy card. Well, shit. I'll try again next turn. Double Force of Will and Swords. Very, very good position to be in with an active Tamiyo. Another Swords. I don't think that was a good use of Swords to Plowshares. Like, I have a ton of mana already, and I have presumably a lot of big scary bullshit in my deck. Alright, there's Riddler, which will transform Tamiyo. Yep. So, yeah, get back a fetch land. And now I have an elemental token queued up as well. Opponent can Tamiyo minus get back swords, and kill my creature, but I will still be left with something that can attack and kill Tamio, which is the good thing here. I guess there is a very niche line where my opponent can wasteland my wooded foothills. No, that's not going to work. I still get to sacrifice it. Blue token. I will fetch. I will get my elemental, and my opponent can remove this. I will get to kill Tamio, which is great. I will just grab some basic land. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can go Baloth off Green Sun and Greater Gargadon. Seems good. Cameo is dead. Do this for 4. All right. I will suspend a Greater Gargadon and pass the turn then. It looks like my opponent is passing right back. Second Greater Gargadon is pretty bad. Send in. All right, my opponent is at 6. I can suspend this to get this going. It might be somewhat realistic to cast this at 10 mana if things go wrong for me this game. I think I'm just going to go ahead and hold the second one in hand rather than suspending my second thing. All right, Felia gets to kill my token, which is pretty annoying. I will sacrifice that to Greater Gargadon and eat 2 points of damage here. Gargadon down to 7. Red Elemental Blast does not answer things here. Notably, next turn, I could go for lethal. Riddler, no. I will counter that. All right. I will take 2. Opponent is tapped out. That's a pretty good thing to do, though. 1, 2, I would have 4. I have Titania in graveyard. I'm 1 short of being able to do this. This Lazotep Quarry is very awkward to use because of the wastelands on the other side of the battlefield. So if I want to bring back a Titania, I need to have 2 to activate this and 1 more land drop. So I would need to not play this land, hit another land drop, and then play this afterwards to get Titania back. I think I just go for it here. So we sack everything to Greater Gargadon. We cast this. We've seen a couple of Force of Wills already. So I feel relatively confident in going for that. We do put up the win there. Okay, I suspect that I am playing a slow game of Magic here, but this is probably an okay hand. I suspect that in this matchup, I play out Orcish Lumberjack first and use that card as bait for removal. I think that means playing Taiga on 1, because I think I want these to be forest and plains. And if it lives, I can think about just shoving a threat. So I honestly might just attack for 1. Yeah, this is why I didn't want to do that. Okay. The sword's bait is successful, though. So we'll take it. We're expecting to play a little bit more of a slog of a matchup against this deck anyway. So it's not the end of the world if our initial plans go wrong. It's, in fact, almost expected that they go wrong versus a control deck. And if we exhaust removal early with stuff like that and then get to resolve something that looks like this is pretty good. And we got a ponder from the opponent as well. I might just be living wishing for a land drop here, much as I want something like Baloth Prime. Yeah, forest. I pretty much always have green, and am likely to draw more forest. I could just pick up the basic plains here. I can't get basic mountain. Just not be wastelandable in the immediate short term. Alright, this one has resolved. I could just grab something like Gaddock Teague. Caracas for Felia is like super reasonable as well. I'm going to get Baloth Prime. And if I don't draw a land for the next turn, I will cast Living Wish for securing another land drop, getting Caracas. Brainstorm from the opponent. Notably using the Underground Sea mana, so Brainstorm into Thoughtseize is not a line unless they have another land that is going to produce black, which they do, but opponent is passing the turn. Now I'm into a new copy of Living Wish. Say yes, I will just get Caracas. Caracas soft counters end of turn Felia, which was indeed what was happening. Get out of there. Now, I could just get wastelanded off of that Caracas, Opponent has used one of their wastelands already. They did find another one, which is sort of annoying. Greater Gargadon is on track to be good, but is not currently good. I've been wastelanded twice, which is taking me off of my top end, which is not great. Things get a little silly once I get red mana. Elia comes back down, unfortunately, and we could get into Riddler nonsense this turn. Ooh, choosing not to blink out my Veteran Explorer. They want more mana. Do I want more mana more than they want more mana? Probably. I will accept the block. This is going to give me access to a color that I don't have, as well as a mana amount that I don't have, so both of these things are relevant. Mountain for one. I want the basic plains for the other. Sure. It's like the basic plains is not doing a lot here, though. With Solemnities boarded out. Just like Yadok Teague after I get Savannah Wastelanded. Alright. So, hard cast Force of Will. Seems likely. There's Baloth Prime. Alright, that does indeed happen. The rationale for playing that one is that if it resolves and my opponent just intended to swords it, I just suspend Greater Gargadon and I can make a whole bunch of beasts that beat swords very easily. Alright, Felia can come in again, and I will take 2. Greater Gargadon ticks down. Let's leave Greater Gargadon out here. Yeah. Another hardcast Force of Will. That's fine. I can do this one more time. Opponent ponders. And now is going to do the Quantum Riddler blink thing, which obviously is great. 16. Alright, there was Flow State. That was something that I talked about earlier when I did Endurance, but we hadn't seen it yet. Opponent has a lot of resources. They have used 2 of their Force of Wills already, so hopefully we can sneak this in. Opponent does have 5 cards in hand. I mean, I think I am just doing the thing. Yeah, that is the 3rd Force of Will, unfortunately for me. Another land drop comes down. I'm taking a ton of damage here, and opponent just has a ton of resources to try to stop what I'm doing. It can try to do some cool stuff with Endurance. Emphasis on try there. I'm at 9. Well, I mean, yeah. Baloth Prime. Orcish Lumberjack. And we go. Bam. Oh, we're just going to always yield to that. Stifled. Sure. Bam. Yield to that as well. Bam. 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 I can go bam, bam, and attack for 9 right now. I think I'm going to do cast, combat, in for 9. Opponent to 8. Felia's attack can get rid of 1 beast token. I'll need something to answer the Gargadon. That didn't feel great. We got over the finish line. My opponent had some good tools to fight against us there and had a lot of copies of Force of Will, but like scoreboard, we did get there. GG. Grindy game though, 40 minutes. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I love them. I have over 1,000 deck lists here. And I think the thing that I like the most about them is they're more than just a basic deck builder. If you need information about your next pre-release or where you can get cards, they have that sort of stuff here too. Whether you need to manage your collection or just a couple of decks, Moxfield does it all. So go check them out. Alright, as long as I don't lose this Green Sun to something like a Thoughtseize or a Counterspell, my hand is pretty darn good. So the game plan is Green Sun for Veteran Explorer on turn 2 via, well, and then Flare of Cultivation to set up for Titania. Ooh, Spirit Guide, Blood Moon. Do I just Titania then? Like, don't fuck around with this stuff? Just 1 mana, 2 mana, 5 mana, go? Yeah. Casual 5-drop on turn 2. Like, without the fetch lands doing its thing, the Titania is going to be slightly less good, but, you know, I can still cut down trees with Orcish Lumberjack just fine. And Orcish Lumberjack giving me green is definitely relevant. Palace on 1. Absolutely. Questing Beast. Green. Sack a forest for green, green, green. Get a thing. Drop a land. Just going to confirm that there's nothing better than Questing Beast. I don't think there is. Yeah. Electric Oof is a little interesting. This is just attacking for 9. Gross. Not having to deal with counterspells, so you just know that your Orcish Lumberjack bullshit resolves is pretty decent. GG. Artifacts? Take that, Chalice of the Void. So I want to be able to wish for this Boseiju, I think. So, like, ignoring this stuff, I'm realistically only looking at 3 cards that I could sideboard in here. Accordingly, I just don't know that I am sideboarding. I think I will just whack the submit button. This is probably fine. Like, I play Orcish Lumberjack on turn 1 unless my opponent does Chalice of the Void. On turn 2, I have 5 mana, which is a green sun for 4. My opponent is also mulliganing to 5. If my opponent is playing something like the One Ring that could get them back into this game, I could also just Collector Oof instead. That is a tapped land, which means Orcish Lumberjack is good to go. Hello, friend. I am a Lumberjack. Oh no. Well, I mean, yeah. Forest. Sack a forest for green, green, green. 5 mana. Titania. Return. Yeah. What a devastating display of power of what this deck is capable of when it is not paired against a blue deck where you have to worry about Orcish Lumberjack not being able to resolve your big card. GG's. 5 minutes, 30 seconds for that round. Most of that was sideboarding time. Okay, my opening hand here has lands and spells, but I'm not sure that it actually does anything. I can suspend a Greater Gargadon. I don't have mana to get to Baloth Prime. I don't have anything cool to do with Solemnity. I think I'm just going to mulligan it. Like, there's potential there. Ooh. This I'll keep. Probably put the Savannah back. Be able to play the early game on basics. Hope to be paired against a non-blue deck. Be able to just, like, shove a Green Sun or Baloth Prime into play. Without worrying about things getting countered. Unfortunately, we will have to worry about things being countered. And there's also Tamiyo. That's interesting. There's a high-risk, high-reward line of cut down a tree, flash in Endurance, block Tamiyo. I think I just want to work towards naturally casting these. Let's see if I can sneak up on a damage here. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'm going to set up for the potential of this card being reasonable. I don't want to set myself a land drop, back a land drop here, and end up in a position where I just simply don't play Magic because my opponent had 1 Force of Will, and then I don't get to hardcast the other things in my hand without cutting down another tree. Tamiyo can then plus to 4. The opponent is Dimir, and there is a Netherglyph protecting Tamiyo now. Alright. I think this is going to be a flash in an endurance sort of turn. My attacks don't do anything versus the Tamiyo plus in the short term. Tamiyo to 6. Wasteland is a thing. Don't know that it's a thing that I care about all that much. Opponent is thinking about this Veteran Explorer and not attacking. End of turn. We'll try to play something that can crash in versus an endurance. Sorry, versus a Tamiyo plus. Nuke that 1 card out of graveyard. Alright. Another endurance. Put that in play. In we go at Tamiyo. This will only be attacking as a 2-power creature. Ooh. Alright. Netherglyph to Yard. I can technically do both of my spells here. So bam, 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 bam. There's Baloth Prime. Opponent can respond here with Wasteland if they want to hit my Taiga, so that I don't cut it down after Baloth Prime is in play. Things get a little weird with a Daze. Like it's Force of Will instead. Alright, so I have Endurance that I can cast. Opponent cracks Clue. I think I'm going to go for end of turn Endurance. It gives my opponent another draw towards getting a Force of Will to stop it. But I maybe tag more cards from graveyard or get to do something like this instead. Alright, so I'll cut this down. Go green, green, green. Then Endurance. Clear the graveyard. Takes out another Goyf. There's still lines that leads towards my opponent being able to stop both copies of Endurance. Like, Bowmaster block both copies of Endurance. Ultimate Tameo is still, like, very much a thing. Damn it. Yeah. I send both at Tameo, but Tameo is going to get to Ultimate. So the bottleneck for my opponent is going to be mana, not cards. Which probably is very awkward, given that they can just Fatal Push Veteran Explorer to ramp themselves. I think we just kind of lose to the turn 1 Tameo here. I think it takes a little while, but presumably Fatal Push Veteran Explorer, get 2 more lands, be able to then use that mana to remove Endurances, probably puts my opponent in a spot where they don't lose, and presumably there's a couple of Force of Will Daze type cards that can interact with me further. So I think things have to get pretty weird for me to win this game. All right, there's another Goyf. Okay, it's going to be Bowman. Oh no, they're not going for additional mana. But for sure, that would be something that they would want. All right, so am I trying to kill Tameo? I probably do. I think I don't want to let this die if possible. All right, let's send both of those in at Tameo and see how my opponent feels about that. Snuff out. Turning this into a 3/4, which means a block is just fine. Double snuff out. All right. I'm going to concede to active Tameo, 3 creatures on board, 25 cards in hand. I hope you'll forgive me for that. All right, so do I want Solemnity? The Dark Depths thing is pretty cool here, admittedly. Like, if my opponent's flex slot removal is on Snuff Out, Merit Lage can potentially just go all the way. And this line is pretty reasonable here. My opponent will have Wastelands to mess with it. I think boarding in the Endurance is reasonable. That gives me Living Wish for land drop and Baloth Prime, and I guess technically Gaddock Teeg to shut off Force of Will. And I guess just shuts off Snuff Out. I can also just play a red Elemental Blast or 2 to help with Tameo. Yeah. This might be important enough to have as a wish target that I don't board the extra one in. I also think it is reasonable to just, like, board out the Solemnities and board in this. That might just be better. The Solemnity stuff is cool. Let's play with the Solemnity stuff. I think it is better to not, but it's interesting. Okay. Turn 1, Veteran Explorer, Flare of Cultivation. Seems pretty reasonable. We ignore the Orcish Lumberjack side of the deck and just hope to top deck some reasonable cards to play over the remainder of the game. Actually, I guess it doesn't really matter which land I play because I am going to get a gajillion D basics, assuming Veteran Explorer resolves. So I will flare, getting green and white. My opponent does have 2 basics. I guess I could have gotten red immediately and played the Orcish Lumberjack. That was a small misplay on my end. Put that to play. Call it a turn there. I don't even know that I want to play the Titania next turn, though. I think I wait to play that around days. Wasteland comes down. Barrogoyf immediately. Yet. That is a scary card. We don't really remove creatures in this deck. I'm going to plant this one in play. Play a Lumberjack. Pass the turn. Land comes down. Right, opponent does attack. I will cast an Endurance, which I fully expect to just eat a Snuff Out. Or a Force of Will or whatever. Going to exile my own graveyard to shrink this. I will go for the block. And we'll see what my opponent can do here. Hydroblast a creature. That is a 2/3. Land can make it a 3/4. Yep. Surveil. So now I don't actually get to kill that, which is unfortunate. And I'll try to do Titania things. Land drop. So there's some really bad stuff that can happen here. So for example, Wasteland, Fetch Land, Daze me in response is disastrous. Oh, actually, I removed my own land. I did want to fetch first. Yes. So now my opponent has active Barrogoyf, and I have nada. One probably spirals out of control in my opponent's favor pretty quickly. I am taking 4 here. My opponent digs 4 deep for another creature. Alright, they miss. That's great. There's a ton of fuel for something like a Murktide Regent in graveyard, though. And Flow State is certainly online. Autsies, yeah. So I need to draw a bomb here. Yikes. Basically, not having access to removal in my deck is really, really rough. Say as I draw the red Elemental Blast, that is one of my very few removal spells. But again, active Barrogoyf is disastrous for me. I will take 4 and Murktide Regent. So I am literally dead to this unless I draw something crazy, which Orcish Lumberjack is not. I guess I can play it, take 8 in the air, but no, without like a Solemnity, no singular card is really getting me there. Guess I could draw Living Wish, get Glacial Chasm, take 8, Glacial Chasm once. No, then I can't draw Solemnity afterwards. That won't work. If my opponent's got a removal spell, I'm dead. Alright, there is the removal spell. That will do it. GG's. We're 2-1 though. So this is a hand where I am desperately hoping that we are not playing against a blue deck, because I have Orcish Lumberjack on 1 into Titania on 2. That is a wasteland. That can keep me off of turn 2 Titania. Alright. I do think I fetch Taiga on 1 and not Mountain for what it's worth, because if I am playing against counterspells, I need another forest to try again at a big mana play. I am just sending in for 1 here and attempting to draw a land to make Titania happen. Alright, we're probably playing against a non-blue deck, which is good. Ooh, are you gonna wasteland me again? Tabernacle. Alright, yeah, that's pretty annoying. Wait, or is it? Veteran Explorer is a thing. So my opponent gave me a sack outlet for Veteran Explorer, which is kind of cool. I think I just go ahead and cut down a forest, a green sun for 1 for Veteran Explorer. Then I get a new forest and use my mana to Living Wish. I can do Solemnity Dark Depths stuff. I think I'm just kind of winning with this anyway, though. I think I'm just going to get another land drop for if things go wrong somehow. And I have played a land already, yeah. Mox Diamond comes down. Yavimaya comes down. Sphere. Alright. So upkeep will not pay for the mana for Veteran Explorer. I will get Forest Plains, I think. Pay for this. Ooh, my opponent doesn't have basics other than this one. Alright, so I have 6 mana, which is just Titania through Sphere of Resistance. Yeah, I will get a fetch land that can get me red. Round out my colors here. Yeah, you can Malevolent Rumble. That is fine by me. I'll probably end up Osageing that. Oh, a Solemnity is kind of cute here, right? End of turn, fetch for the Elemental. Get the Mountain. I guess I just want to pay for these normally. That is a Green Sun. Green Sunning for Collector Oof is 4 mana with Sphere. I'm just gonna play Solemnity. Get my thing. Land drop. Solemnity. Combat in for 10. Opponent will fog. Nope, will not fog 5 of that. Will fog 5 of that. And I think I hold this. I think that's pretty darn good as a spell. Oh, no trigger on Urza Saga there. Counters aren't allowed to be put on it. There's a Life from the Loam. That's a thing. Ooh. Alright. So, how do I get myself out of this? I need 4 mana on my main phase to get Endurance, which means Orcish Lumberjack and Forest. Or no, sorry, I need 5 mana. I need X equals 3 plus 1 for Sphere. It's 3, 4, 5. So I can keep Titania and Orcish Lumberjack then. Greater Gargadon doesn't super do anything right now. Alright, play Boseiju. Forest. Sack Forest. for some mana. Make a new friend. X equals 3. Get endurance. Clear graveyard. Pass turn. I'm like just short of lethal again next turn if my opponent attacks and I block with endurance. I also don't have a forest anymore. Wasteland's bad for me. Well, yeah, I have to sacrifice a forest, so I can't keep that extra creature. So I block here. N is easy. How am I staying alive? Living Wish for Caracas, which I can't possibly cast. I don't know what my out is here. Not Orcish Lumberjack, though. Without a forest already. Yeah, another forest, and like that's an out. Yeah, so I can attack for 10, put my opponent to 4, and then I die. GG. I apparently threaded that one wrong. This permanently shutting down Urza's Saga was pretty reasonable. Maybe I should have just Boseju'd it. I think I am not messing around with Solemnity given what just happened there. I think I'm going to board in Blood Moons. Living Wish gives me Baloth, Caracas, Boseiju, Endurance for the matchup. And I guess technically Glacial Chasm sometimes. I think I need to board in one of Baloth Prime or Endurance to round things out here. I think I'm going to board in Endurance. Yeah, this is fine. I'm going to go ahead and loop a Veteran Explorer into play. Opponent has Thespian Stage. I go to combat and swing in for 1. I think I just like Collector Oof here. Give my opponent a little bit more time to draw their basic before I do Greater Gargadon Veteran Explorer stuff. Malevolent Rumble. We could be facing down Dark Depths very quickly here. Or not this time, but we are facing down 2 Life from the Loams. Alright. So I'll go to combat. And in for 3. Opponent goes to 16. Flare of Cultivation Veteran Explorer. Getting a green and a white. Oh, opponent does have a second basic forest. A green and a red. One of those into play. Tapped. I have 4 mana immediately. Let's go up to 5, putting a land into my graveyard. To Titania. Getting back Windswept Heath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can get... I have 2 Taigas. I added a second Taiga, right? Yeah. So I could get Taiga and immediately suspend. Sure. Taiga, suspend. Pass turn. I'm just kind of a little soft to Merit Lage. It's not like a card you should be super thinking about within the metagame or anything, but it is an observation. We don't have something like Swords that just easily gets rid of it. That's a Dark Depths. So I think I'm going to do all of that stuff, and then my opponent just plays Dark Depths and makes a 20/20, and I die to it. Opponent rumbles again. Sure. Getting Pithing Needle. So I guess this is the point where I do the thing. Yeah. I'm going to do this a few times. Crop rotation for Tabernacle is a thing. Maybe don't want to do all of these. Something like this leaves me with a few bodies through a Tabernacle. Yeah. So the insidious part here is that this still taps for mana. So this is still 1 to activate 20 me. So I'm just dead. Yeah. Like I could play towards drawing Living Wish Caracas, but like I will just eat it to the 2 Life from the Loams that are there. Ugh. GG. Okay. Does this hand do anything? So theoretically, turn 1, Orcish Lumberjack, turn 2, 5 mana, Green Sun for 4, get Questing Beast. Alternatively, turn 1, suspend Greater Gargadon, turn 2, Veteran Explorer, ramp, have nothing to ramp towards. I'm not sure that this hand is actually good. Double Gargadon is very bad, double Orcish Lumberjack is very bad. I think I'm just going to mulligan this. This is a hand that is not perfect. I'll keep it. I probably just get rid of one of the lands here. I'm probably trying to set up Green Sun into Lazotep Quarry as the thing that I do. I'll pass the turn. Verdant Catacombs. Would have been one of those rounds where I could have just jammed. Greater Gargadon is another way to sacrifice a Veteran Explorer, which I think is what I'm doing with my turn. Grab a mountain and Veteran Explorer. And then next turn I have some interesting interactions here that I can potentially assemble. Badger Mole Cub. Gaia's Cradle. Alright, yep. Cool. That's real rough. My turn is a lot less exciting now. I probably need to just Living Wish for Caracas and get that Atraxa out of play. Endurance, Green Sun, Once Upon a Time, Bojuka Bog. So this is what I know that my opponent has. So am I sacking the Veteran Explorer this turn with Greater Gargadon? I go Greater Gargadon, sack this, have a total of 4 mana, but potentially give my opponent more mana as well. I might not sack that Veteran Explorer yet. Let's Living Wish, grab Caracas, get this out of play immediately, and call it a turn there. Windswept Heath comes down, touching a Bayou. Oof. I'll lose my Greater Gargadon there as my easy... Well, no, I probably lose the Baloth Prime because I can also just sack Veteran Explorer to Lazotep Quarry. And opponent agrees. 4 mana. Opponent has tapped and untapped their mana a bunch of times. Okay, they want more mana, is why they're making this attack. I don't think I give it to them. I think I just take 2 here. A Green Sun for 3, overpaying for a white. I have my own Green Sun. I get to Baloth Prime, play Greater Gargadon, sack Veteran Explorer. Yes, I can. So suspend that, and go ahead and do 1 damage here. Yeah. Where do you go? Come back. Opponent takes 1. Then land drop, sack Veteran Explorer. Okay, opponent is going for Endurance in response. I'm not doing the Lazotep Quarry thing this turn. Not sure that I quite understand the logic there. So 1 and 2. Alright, so it looks like opponent has 2 total basics. X equals 4 for the Baloth Prime. And now I can get 6 4/4 beasts out of this immediately with Greater Gargadon, while making Baloth Prime be able to attack as well. Once Upon a Time finds Hoof. Okay. Collector Oof. Bog. Alright, no attacks from the opponent. And I think I am going in here. No. I have to click here. So 1. Yield to both of these. 2. 3. Lollipop crushing sound from that one commercial. And a total of 6 of these. Baloth Prime now normally untaps. I go down 1 on this as well. I can go land drop, 1 more elemental, sack the one that I make immediately, and send Greater Gargadon in this turn as well. So yeah, and yeah, past that. Now there will be some amount of phasing shenanigans here. I think I'm going to put all the math on my opponent for, like, how do I block enough to survive and kill you with Crater Hoof the following turn. Alright, White of the Reliquary activates, phasing out a creature. My opponent goes to 3, and I will just get hoofed. Including all of the creatures that I killed, that is 29 damage already, which is sort of wild. I killed 2 creatures there. There could have been 2 more attacking bodies with larger buffs. Rough. Am I doing Solemnity? I think I'm doing Solemnity. Stops counters for Badger Mole Cub. Opens up Dark Depths Cheese. Although I guess my opponent's ability to tutor up lands makes connecting with the 2020 a little harder. I could attempt to moon my opponent and get a free one. The moon feels a little slow even on the play though. Unless I Orcish Lumberjack it out. My opponent has mana dorks. I'm maybe not denying them colors. I don't think this hand does anything. I'm going to just mulligan this. The second hand does nothing. It just cannot cast its spells. I'm going to 5, which is not promising. I have to get a Taiga on 1. Turn 1, Veteran Explorer or Greater Gargadon. The other one on turn 2. I think getting rid of this. I'm just trying to work towards get to Baloth Prime. 2 crimes. Put the Veteran Explorer into play rather than the Greater Gargadon. If I lose one of those two cards to Thoughtseize, I think I want the Veteran Explorer in play. It at least has the possibility of like blocking, if nothing else, to get me that land. There's Once Upon a Time, getting a Hierarch, playing a Hierarch. Sure. All right. I will go ahead and do my attack for 1. Yeah. Opponent to 18. Make a land drop. Suspend Greater Gargadon. I'm going to have 3 mana. I can get Forest off of Veteran Explorer and then play an Endurance on my opponent's end step and not give them that mana for their own turn. That sounds pretty good to me. And then I can play Baloth Prime on my own turn and make like 16 power. That sounds great. Next land drop comes in. Green Sun for 2 will probably be Badgermole Cub. It is. End of turn. Back a Veteran Explorer. Have to get Forest if I want to play Endurance immediately. We do, unfortunately, ramp my opponent, and they're pretty good at using a lot of mana. We'll clear their graveyard for what little that is worth. One more suspend counter off. Is there anything cute with Lazotep Quarry here? So I can go 3 of my mana, bring back Veteran Explorer, get 2 mana. That doesn't get me to Baloth Prime. Okay. In I go for 3. Opponent to 14. There's Baloth Prime. So I have 5 beasts for next turn. I think I can just literally die this turn, though. Opponent throws down a land. It's not a Gaia's Cradle, so I guess that's good news for me. But each one of these is tapping for 2 due to Badgermole Cub's ability, so there's still a lot of mana here. A Green Sun for 2, or another Badgermole Cub. This increases my opponent's creature count, and now each one of these are tapping for 3. Ignoble Hierarch. Oof. Thanks, I hate it. So I imagine that I just sack everything here. Yeah. So I sack everything. I block 1, and then have 16 power worth of things plus endurance. Ugh. Giving my opponent that extra mana is not amazing. It's so scary when they can just convert that into like hoof and natural order. I don't really think I have the tools to change much here, especially on the draw where my opponent can get mana dorks down before Blood Moon stuff is relevant. There's also some tension between Veteran Explorer giving my opponent basics and playing Blood Moons in the first place. That might be a deck building thing to think about. This hand does not have mana. This hand tries to do something cheesy with Solemnity, I guess. I'll put back a mountain. Misty Rainforest from my opponent. And a bird. I will throw down Veteran Explorer, pass the turn. That Wasteland means that my soft lock with Glacial Chasm that I could do is not valid. I can still just try to Dark Depths. Badgermole Cub creates a recursive Wasteland now. I can't Solemnity and Living Wish this turn. I can have a maximum of 4 mana. I'm still just a little way away from doing my thing. I don't think I want to give my opponent 2 basic lands by attacking. Alright. Living Wish. Yes. I think I am telegraphing that this is coming. My opponent has blockers for this in their deck, and 1 on board, so the Dark Depths stuff might not just kill quickly enough here. Yeah, that is just a turn 3 natural order for Atraxa. Not fantastic. And I'm going to get Thought Seized off my Solemnity. Absolute disaster. Cradle Bird, Once Upon a Time, Thought Seize. I suspect that this one is over. Like my deck was simply not fast enough here. And Cradle comes down as well. Ignoble Hierarch. Dismiss this stuff at this stage. Opponent has Disruptor Flute. I honestly might put on Karakas if I was them. If I draw another Living Wish. Well, I guess at that point they could just name the Living Wish. Greater Gargadon, totally reasonable as well. Yeah, Living Wish. I like that name a lot. And they can just plan to hit me 2 or 3 times with Atraxa to kill me. I don't really know how I'm winning this one anymore. Another Wasteland comes down. Or a bird, which is effectively free with Gaia's Cradle. I can just die to hoof. Yeah, I am just dead to hoof. Absolutely disgusting. We put up a couple wins on the board with this deck, which is totally reasonable. GG's. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Overall thoughts on the deck list. I like the general stuff that this deck is doing, but I would make some changes personally. I don't think that messing around with this is worth it. In a format with as much wasteland as this format has, I don't know that the soft lock glacial chasm thing is all that neat. The oops, I made a merit lage, which is something totally different than the rest of your deck is doing, is kind of interesting, but I don't know that it's actively good. If you remove Solemnity, you can potentially remove the white from the deck. There's something to be said about Deafening Silence as an anti-combo tool. I think the biggest thing that I'm missing in this deck is removal. Like, in a game 1, if my opponent plays a turn 1 Tameo, that is essentially there forever unless I can manage to block and kill it in combat. And not having outs to commonly played creatures feels very problematic. Like, I imagine that if you have no removal spells in your deck and you get paired against something like Energy, you can just get run over by having no ability to disrupt their stuff. Maybe you can build this deck a little bit more like a glass cannon deck. Get the other Baloth Prime into the main. So go like Baloth Prime, 4 copies of Once Upon a Time. And you just try to get better at assembling either Orcish Lumberjack into Titania or like some sort of Greater Gargadon into Baloth Prime thing. Malevolent Rumble is something you could think about as well. Like, you can try to make yourself faster to keep up with the speed of opposing decks. Alternatively, Hexing Squelcher, and just say, you don't get to counter my endgame Baloth Prime and Titania stuff, it just resolves. And between Hexing Squelcher and Orcish Lumberjack and Veteran Explorer as early game targets, maybe you overwhelm some basic removal. There is definitely something here that is at least reasonable. Orcish Lumberjack into Titania is good. Veteran Explorer into Greater Gargadon is good. I don't know that taking a turn off to Living Wish is good. You also need something for the show and tell style matchups, which we didn't see today. Like, what if you go Jund? Like, can you go Jund and just put a bunch of Chaos Defilers into this deck as another thing that you cast off of Orcish Lumberjack mana or ramp into via Veteran Explorer? That gets removal into the deck, which is currently missing. But that would be increasing your curve, which is not the best. I will say that, like, the Baloth Prime combo was not good enough to win a few times. Between, like, Tabernacles, large life-linking creatures, a lethal backswing, and you're kind of all in once you do, like, the Greater Gargadon Baloth Prime thing. And so if it's not good enough, you just lose. You can't play more spells after that. Maybe that's not significantly different than whiffing with your Doomsday or being beaten off show and tell. Maybe that's not a true problem. I think at this point I'm starting to ramble. I like what was cooking here. This was a fun way to spend a couple hours. I give it a thumbs up in that regard. I suspect that this deck is going to just crush matches like we did in, I think, round 2, where we had a sub 5 minute win, or be overwhelmed in many cases where you just physically don't have the tools to address what your opponent is doing and you're not faster than them. If you go Jund, you can also Thoughtseize either main or side. Thoughtseize buying you time could be a really big deal. Yeah, there might be something to going Jund with this. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day there. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, consider leaving a like or comment on the way out. It helps out a lot. And if you have anything you want to see on the channel, the donation deck list queue is always open to some sweet decks. All right, have a great day. See ya.